Hey everyone, welcome back to another video in the Wax on Wax Off series. Today we're going to be going over basic combat, and I'm excited because we're getting into some real interesting concepts, and I'm actually going to get to show two high-level games where the best players in the world forgot the concepts I'm going to show you today. So they may seem trivial, but not respecting them in a critical moment of the game will be the end for you. So it's very important, and let's get right into it. It's going to be the same format as last time. I'm just going to go through the Lichess tool. I think it's great, and I'll put this link in the description as always. So take the black pieces, simple enough. Rook captures the pawns. Take the black pieces and don't lose yours. So this rook is defending this pawn, but there's nothing defending the rook, so I'll take the rook first and then the pawn. Now this pawn is defended, but this rook is not. So I capture it there. This rook is not defended, so we can capture that, and now finally we capture the pawn. And this is an interesting one. Everything is defended except for this bishop, and we just have to make sure we don't go to c7 directly, because the knight can actually go backwards and capture it. And that's actually an interesting point to note, because the game I'm going to show at the end, the player, one of the best players in the world, actually forgot about that. The way the knight moves, and lost the game because of that. So and here this pawn, this is actually called a pawn chain, and the base of the pawn chain is the weakest point, so we attack the base and then we capture. Now this queen's unprotected, so we capture that and just collect. So that was fun. We know how to fight with chess pieces, so congratulations. Protection. You're under attack, escape the threat. So the bishops are attacking these two squares, but not on c1, so we can move to rook there. The queen is guarding a lot of squares, but the knight can just go somewhere where it's not attacked. Again, this knight can't move. This knight actually can't move anywhere, but we actually have a rook that will help us defend. Now this is an interesting one. So both the bishop and the pawn are attacked, but by moving this pawn forward, they actually defend each other. The bishop defends the pawn and the pawn defends the bishop. So that's some nice coordination. Now here the rook, I can't move to b1 because the rook can capture, and this bishop is hitting the rook on e1, so I only have one move, and that's to block. Now again, the rook can't get out because the other rook is attacking it. However, again, I can block. So we're able to protect. Now this bishop is under attack, and also black has a threat to capture because this bishop is defending the knight. Black is actually threatening to capture the bishop and then attack the knight. So we can actually put the knight on c4 so that it defends b2 and also gets out of the way of the queen. Now finally, the queen is attacking the bishop on d3, so we just move back and defend. Okay, great. Piece you don't lose is a piece you win. Next, we're going to go to combat. A good warrior knows both attack and defense. So let's see how this goes. So take the black pieces and don't lose yours. So my bishop isn't under attack, but the pawn is, so let's move it forward. And capture the rook. Okay. Now, take the black pieces and don't lose yours. So if I capture this bishop, the rook is going to capture this bishop. If I move this bishop over here, then he can capture here. So I think we should defend. So now pawns are protected, and now this bishop can come in. It's important to move the bishop out of the way because otherwise the rook would have captured. Now we actually can capture the bishop, and then we can capture the rook. So it's a bit of a that puzzle is a bit artificial, but yeah, this is not so practical. But let's just keep going through it. So here the knight's attacking both of the pawns, and the queen's under attack. So if I capture the rook, which is actually what would be a normal move in the game, I would lose these pawns, which I don't think is what we want. So we want to defend. Then we capture, and then we capture the rook. Again, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of these puzzles, but for completeness, let's just go through them. So here, let's just move the pawn. Again, we want to capture the bishop because the bishop defends the rook. Then we can come back and now capture the rook. Okay, so I need to defend this pawn. So I can actually either push it forward or I can play bishop here. I think they're both okay. Let's push it forward. Let's bring this knight in, capture the queen, and let's promote to a bishop. A little fancy under promotion, and then we'll capture the rook. Okay, so next check in one. To check your opponent attack their king, they must defend it. Okay, so if we go check, the bishop's actually going to take the rook. So we need to go to this one. Okay, nailed it. So again, you gotta be very careful with the knight. It's actually attacking both of the square that would work. However, this one is not guarded by the knight. Now again, I can't go to check because the rook is guarding that, but I can go to here, and that's a check. And yeah, so the aim is you have to check in one move and not go to a place that can be captured. And here, the pawn can actually move 2 squares on the first move. So I can play d4 and check. And now here, I again give check without being captured. And now, again, this knight is very good defensive piece. It's attacking 3 squares that my queen can go to. However, this square is open for both the rook and the queen. So let's go over there. Okay, this is a very interesting one. Nice little tricky puzzle at the end. So the obvious move is like rook c7 check. It doesn't work because the knight will capture, and again, the knight's defending that one, and the rook is defending this one. So you may think there's no checks. However, this is actually an important concept called a discover check, where this queen is actually giving the king a check, except the knight's in the way. If we simply move the knight, then that would be a check, and that's called a discovered check. A very important concept. Okay, so we got that one. Now we want to move out of check. You must escape or block the attack. Okay, so this is pretty simple. We just can't go to e2 because the queen's guarding that, but we can just sidestep, move the king out of the way. So here, and again, this is actually very important to know because I've seen a lot of players sometimes they don't even realize when they get checkmated because they don't understand where the king can go, or they may assume that they got checkmated but they realize they have another square. So here you may think I got checkmated. I can go to any of these squares because they're all attacked either by the knight, the queen, or the bishop. However, this square on b4 is not under attack, so we can go there. Again, you may think it's checkmate, the king can't go anywhere, but the rook can block. King's under check, so I can actually do take or I can block. But you know, we want to capture the bishop. We want to just give away a free piece. This is a very nice one. So you may think that I can, so the knight's actually giving check to the king. You may think I can take the knight, but it's actually, I can't. That would be an illegal move because my queen would be, my king would be in check, and you can't put your king in check. So you have to capture with the knight on g1. Now again, so this is called a pin. I'm sure we're going to get into that in a later lesson. Yeah, somehow I'll just give my 2 cents here. I feel like the puzzles kind of dropped in quality. I feel like these are too difficult for someone just starting chess. This is like very advanced concepts like pins and yeah. So if you are going through this, don't worry. But yeah, I guess it's good to also push yourself and do better and do more difficult puzzles. So I can't take because it's pinned, but I can put my king to e4. And now knight e5 should be good enough, blocking this check. Okay, so maiden one, we're almost done. And yeah, so now we're actually going to show you how you can end the game. So the way to end the game is to a checkmate. You want to put the king in check such that the king can't move anywhere. So we saw some positions that were close to checkmate, but they weren't quite checkmate. And then here we're going to actually finish the job. And again, I'm going to show two games after this. One of them is with the knight capture, and the other one is when this actually former world champion missed the checkmate in one. So attack your opponent's king in a way that cannot be defended. So we actually have two ways to capture the bishop and the queen. If we capture with the bishop, the king would be able to sidestep, but when you put the queen, the most powerful piece beside it, the king has nowhere to go. This is an interesting one. You actually have you have two ways to give check. But if you capture this pawn with your pawn, that doesn't really do anything, whereas the knight, and this is something to know, is when the knight gives check, it actually can't be blocked. So that was an example of a smothered mate where you just gave check and the king couldn't move anywhere. So mate in one. Now this queen, when the king is on the edge of the board, that gives a lot of chances to give checkmate. The king can't move on to this G file, if you remember terminology from the first video. This rook on the 8th rank can deliver the checkmate on the H file. This is a nice one. It seems like there's a lot of moves here with the queen or the knight. Now, you may think that going to the center is a nice move, giving check, and it looks like a checkmate. And again, remember what I said about sometimes beginners may assume that something is checkmate, but you have to be very careful and check all the escape routes. Here, the king can actually escape to d6. So you want to give check to the king, but also guard the square. So the knight on e8 would do that, because it would attack both of those squares, c7 and d6. And of course, the queen is guarding all the other squares. So this is a checkmate here. Now we actually have a discovered checkmate coming up. So this knight is guarding this escape route. This rook is guarding everything here. This bishop's actually not needed for the checkmate, but I guess it's just there for fun. And now this pawn will actually capture on. It's interesting. Actually, the move I'm going to make is with the pawn, but it's the bishop that delivers the checkmate. So that's what we call a discovered check, and in this case, a checkmate. So tag your opponent's king. So this rook is pinning this rook. So this rook actually can't defend this bishop, and well, you may be tempted to take this rook. I mean, it's a free rook, and you're going to take it with check, and it looks like checkmate. But actually, black has 3 ways to block, so that's not going to be it. However, if you take this bishop, again, as I mentioned, the rook is pinned, and this king can't move anywhere because of the knight. So this would be checkmate in one. Okay, last one. I'm just going to do this one. Queen goes to e7, and that's checkmate. Okay, so we finished with the fundamentals. So that was really good. So I want to go into the 2 games that I mentioned. So this game was very recent. This was in YKNC, the Tata Steel tournament, which is one of the it's called a super tournament in chess, where the best players in the world get invited and they play in a round robin format. So I think there's like maybe this year there were 12 people. I think it was 11 rounds this year. So they play 11 games, they play each other. And Fabiano Caruana, who was at one point number 2 rated player in the world, was a former world champion challenger, and definitely one of the greatest players on earth. And in this game, in the classical over the board, this wasn't like an online 1-minute game, this was over the board classical game. He made a mistake. So granted, the position was not the best for white, so Fabiano had the white pieces here, and he's playing on Nishigiri, also another super grandmaster. The position is very complicated. It has to be noted that they're playing in a time control where they need to make 40 moves within a specific time. So this is going to be Fabiano's last move before the time control, and this move is notorious for players, under the pressure of time, and usually the position is going to be very complicated around the 40 move mark. There's a lot of big blunders. but you just don't expect to see this from a player like Fabiano. And what he did here was he played rook b6, and what he forgot was, and I can even, sorry, I highlighted the knight, but see if you can figure out what the move is that Fabiano missed. And you can pause the video, and yeah, he actually just forgot that the knight can move backwards and capture the knight. Like I said earlier in the video, the knight's a tricky piece. You may forget about it. And the thing is, with the pawn and the knight, the king's so vulnerable. I'm sure Fabiano was just sort of focused on the knight moving forward, and he just lost his concentration for one move, and Nishikori captured the rook, and yeah, after this it was lights out. So that was just one illustration of why you need to really, pay attention to squares that your piece can move to. The next game was actually very, very famous. So this is actually a man versus machine. Vladimir Kramnik, who was the 14th world champion, he played a match against Deep Fritz, and this was in the early 2000s. So when computers were not yet stronger than humans, at least they wouldn't be able to beat a human in the match. So this was still a very competitive match, and Kramnik played really well actually. I think he had a great position, and here I believe he just needed to move the rook, and it would have been an interesting game. However, he somehow miscalculated something, and he went for this position, and he forgot about something very important, and I'm going to let you pause the video and figure it out. So he forgot that this was a checkmate in one, which is how the game ended, and that was Vladimir Kramnik, who actually was world champion at the time, blundered a mate in one. So as you can see, two of the best players in the world have, in very serious games, have made these mistakes. Of course, these are famous because they don't happen often at all. But I'm just trying to let you know that again, with the whole wax on and wax off philosophy, is everything I'm telling you is important to master. So hope you enjoyed the video, and definitely hit the like button if you enjoyed the content. It really helps me a lot, knowing that people are watching and learning something. And I'll be back next week with another video. In the meantime, we have gone through a lot in these first three lessons. I would say, as you can see, even me, it doesn't hurt me to try these. It's it can beat, it's better than maybe mindlessly scrolling on social media or something. So definitely, even if you think these concepts, I would advise you to go through both the chess pieces fundamentals as well as the coordinates. It doesn't hurt to practice this again. And next week we'll keep going, and I'm very excited because pretty soon we're going to be getting into some really important concepts. Like probably we're going to be going through whole games. So I'm excited. I hope you're excited, and stay tuned. Thanks so much.